Hi everyone, so welcome back for another review. This time we're going to be doing a retrospective review. I'm going to be taking you back to 2004 for a film called Hidalgo. Now, this was a film released by Disney or under the Buena Vista banner at the time. And it's directed by Joe Johnston. Now, Joe Johnston had done Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer, Jumanji, and in more recent times he'd done, Captain America: The First Avenger. Um, this has a great cast. This is Viggo Mortensen, really coming off the heels. Well, he's coming out hot out the gate off of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So this was kind of, him being positioned as potentially, a main star, and but he, this has a great cast in it. Omar Sharif is also in this film, who is a tremendous actor. But the reason we're kind of taking a look back on this film is I think it's a film that at least I've come to appreciate a lot more as the years have gone along. I actually remember going to see this in the cinema when it came out. I believe it was March time in 2004. And I remember going to see this with a couple of friends. And I remember really enjoying it. But it's only until years later and kind of revisiting and rewatching this film that I realized I think I have much more appreciation for the film, more so nowadays. This film is already 20 years old, which is crazy to think. Where's that time gone? But without sounding, redundant or sounding like, like I'm old or something, they don't make films like this anymore. It's very rare that you'll get films like this where it's just literally a one-off original story, and you just can be transported to a different world for a few hours, and the art of making these sort of, I suppose, one-off stories or one-off films has kind of been lost in the last 20 years. We're looking at properties or IPs that are, it's like anytime they're looked at, it's all about, okay, how many films, television series, trilogies, whatever the case may be, can be kind of sort of milked from it, and this film it's I suppose it is partly based on a true story. Some of those aspects of the story are up for debate. How much of it was true and how much of it wasn't has been kind of debated over the years. But what I would say, whether only a small percentage is actually true, it's still a pretty amazing story. And we follow, this is based on the life of Frank Hopkins, who was, I suppose you could say an enthusiast of the sort of Mustang breed of horses. But essentially, we follow him. We kind of start off the story where, we essentially are witness to the massacre at Wounded Knee. And he is someone who has a lot of guilt because he was the one who was passing orders to the troops who are stationed there, and kind of keeping everyone in the encampment. And obviously, as we know from history and what is depicted in this film, unfortunately, it ended in a massacre. And so he has a lot of guilt. He is trying to forget that he had a part to play in that, and he blames himself, that he essentially was the one who transported orders to essentially for this to happen, and so in the end, he kind of has alcohol issues, and he's trying to kind of find a purpose in life. He ends up in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, and then eventually what comes down the line is that a sheik sends his sort of, I suppose, right-hand man, by the name of Aziz, to essentially recruit or let them know about a race that happens in the desert, called the Ocean of Fire, and it's like a 3,000-mile race across the desert regions. I believe across Iraq and Syria and stuff like that. It's sort of in that region and area, and then sort of ends when they, I suppose the finish line is like where they get to the ocean, essentially. Without sort of giving too much away here, but essentially, and then, during this race, he experiences a lot of sort of adversity, and they because he's sort of from the United States, and he's kind of essentially, as they say, an infidel. They're basically, they don't really like him being in the race. They feel like it's essentially bringing disgrace to it. But essentially, he befriends the great sheik, and there's and also his daughter. And his daughter, there's some. I feel like there's some really good subplots in this film. There's the story of his daughter and the sheik, and kind of and then there's betrayal from within his royal family, and so Frank Hopkins gets kind of, I suppose, mixed up in this in some ways, but ends up essentially helping the sheik, and they sort of have a essentially a friendship, and also the sheik's daughter helps him a lot throughout the journey and stuff. Obviously, I'm just kind of giving you a general overview here, because especially if you're a viewer who hasn't seen this film, I would highly recommend it. This is a great adventure film. Yes, there are aspects that are kind of cheesy at times, but I don't feel like it overdoes that. Especially when you're talking about a film that involves a horse that also has its own personality. Hidalgo, is a character, is also a main character of this film, which is and so it is kind of shared with Viggo Mortensen's character, Frank Hopkins. So. And, the music's done by James Newton Howard, who's done many great films. It's really kind of like a swashbuckling adventure that, quite honestly, I look back on, like, as I've mentioned, with more affection now. I feel like these films are becoming more rare. I hope they'll come back at some point, but I feel like Hollywood's kind of gone almost past its own Rubicon at this point. It's never really. I just feel like it's never really going to return to these types of films. But who knows? There may come a day. But sometimes I suppose you could say the positive of that is that these films are a product of their time, and you know, it kind of reflects how films were back then compared to now. But at times, you know, you kind of miss that, right? But so yeah, this like I say, just giving that general overview of the story, and essentially it's all about the race called the Ocean of Fire, and essentially, you know, the and you know, essentially about one man finding purpose and also being able to make amends for a past mistake, you know, that cost people's lives, and how he can make up for that. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you too much about the rest of it and how it ends, because I feel like it, for me, I'd rather people go and see it if they haven't seen it, because yeah, I just feel like this is a film that deserves to be seen. It deserves to be reevaluated. Um, and like I say, it does have its little cheesy moments, but I wouldn't say, you know, I still feel they're quite subtle. You know, they never become too overpowering and take away from the story, or you know, start to sort of become too frequent that it makes it into a comedy. You know, um, but yeah, this film is very good at balancing, you know, the the light-hearted moments, you know, and sort of the the romantic, or like the romantic elements that's quite subtle, but you know, and then the more serious side, you know, I feel like this film balances everything out quite nicely. Um, but yeah, that's my quick review of, oh, I suppose quick review of like a retrospective of Hidalgo. Um, yeah, and one last thing I would say is that if you like films that are also on the subject of horses and racing and that kind of thing, this is definitely one to watch. And like I say, you know, what I also forgot to mention with regards to the film is they not only look down upon him, but they also look down upon his horse, which is a Mustang. But like compared to the sort of Arabian horse breeds, they consider the Mustang to be not pure. And essentially, there's also that aspect to the story as well. So yeah, and I feel like it's also a feel good film. You know, it's all about overcoming adversity, and you know, there is an element, you know, of kind of finding friendship in unexpected places, and that helping overcome adversity. And yeah, there's some really good messages in this film, and I think that's also something that you don't get as much of now. So yeah, that's basically my review for Hidalgo. As I say, highly recommend this film if you haven't seen it, and yeah, it definitely, you know, for me is one of those films that every now and again I will go back to and watch, because it's just, you know, like I say, I've come to appreciate it a lot more now. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this film, you know, in the comments. And, you know, do you like the film? Is it something that you did see at the time? Or is it something that you've never seen before, and after you've watched it, you agree with me or you don't agree with me? But yeah, if you like this video, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications. Going to be a lot more reviews as time goes along, some retrospective as well as stuff that's just come out. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a series of reviews that I'll be doing looking back on older films. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. But yeah, and hit a like as well on the video. That really helps the channel grow. And it's very much appreciated on my part. So without further ado, I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.